talked about how this is a systemic reality, how this didn't happen on accident. It's ingrained in the fabric of our country because in 1607, rich landowning Europeans came to this land, declared it their own despite the indigenous people they found there. Right. They didn't have the labor force in order to create the economy they needed to. So in order to provide or to supplement or to allow for themselves to raise and grow tobacco and make money off of it, they brought with them servants. It was an insufficient population between 1607 and 1619. Those servants were indentured European servants, often people who were not rich coming from Europe.
Irish, mostly Irish.
And what we find in 1619, when the first enslaved Africans were brought to this country, a reality took place. African enslaved individuals and European indentured servants, and really if we want to define slavery, any type of obligatory labor is slavery, so indentured servitude was a form of slavery. They were European and African in nature, they lived in the same places, they did the same work, they dealt with the same circumstances. They married, they had children together, they developed communities together, and for the individuals in power, that is a dangerous, dangerous thing. Because what also they did is that they rebelled together. So you see in this country a series of laws that were designed to separate those two groups of people. The word white did not appear in any policy in this country until 1691. Policies started being written making it illegal to intermarry across races, to have children across races, all these things that we see woven into the fabric, and still it didn't stop shit. In 1705, this country did two things at the same time. We passed the Virginia Slave Code, which said indentured servitude isn't a thing if you're of African descent. No matter if you were free previously, you are now obligated to servitude for life. We created chattel slavery in 1705. It didn't happen before that. And in that same year, in 1705, we freed every European indentured servant, and we gave them a few things. Mind you, they were non-land owning. We gave them land. We gave them crops. We gave them money. And we gave all the men a weapon. We gave them a gun, a musket, and we made it compulsory in nature for them to serve as slave patrols in this country. That is the origin of the police in the United States of America. Formerly European indentured servants who had nothing, and when they found community and commonality with their enslaved African brethren, that community was shattered around this arbitrary line that is the color of their skin, because that's the easiest way to do it. And we convinced this group of people that they somehow were better than the people that they had sweated and been beaten and existed with. We created a class in between the two classes, never to be the rich land-owning Europeans, and still considered in their minds and in the social construct a step above people of African descent. That is continued in this country. 1776 was the Declaration of Independence, when we gave a big middle finger to Great Britain and we said, no more, we are our own country. 1787 is when we had the Constitution of the United States. We talked about all these great ideas we had for our country. We didn't name what those rights are, and we never named who a citizen was. It's absent in 1787. In 1790, there was the Naturalization Act of 1790, which said that a citizen is defined as a white person. And 1 year later, in 1791, that is when we introduced the Bill of Rights. It was not on accident that this took place. The first U.S. Census was also in 1790. So a few months apart from when we said a citizen must be a white person, we then proceeded to say, now we're going to count. And the census was not like now. People didn't opt into their race. They were told what they were. And a year later, we got the Bill of Rights in this country. This didn't happen on accident. And what history has shown us is the greatest threat to this country is people with common experiences. When the 99% bands together, the 1% has nothing and they stand no chance. So I don't want you to be fooled with what happened on 16th Street. Because I stood there today and I watched a parade, I didn't see a protest. I watched people joyously celebrating a mission that we have not yet accomplished. I stood 5 feet away from where nights before I saw chaos, where people were being abused by police, being shot with tear gas, sprayed in the face, hit with rubber bullets, attacked, beaten, and brutalized. And when the people didn't back down, when they became resilient, and when we responded more in masses, we see what we have now. Everybody steps back. No restriction, no law enforcement. Paint Black Lives Matter on the floor, put it on the building. Feign the reality of success. give the illusion that we have won, convince people to back down, to go back into their homes, to leave the streets, and to stop disrupting. We got that because we disrupted, and I don't want you to be confused. Do not fall for the rope-a-dope and the misdirection. That is not what success looks like. And at the same time, performative allyship will get us nowhere. So our responsibility in our job is to continue pressing what we need to do and accomplish. There's no such thing as a peaceful protest. There is no such thing as a peaceful protest, because peacefulness is defined as lacking disruption. And if you are protesting, you are disrupting the status quo. So inherently, us being here is not peaceful. And while we may not be aggressive, and we may not be violent, and we may not wish no ill will or harm to anybody, let's not be confused and believe the rhetoric that says this is fucking peaceful, because it's not. And what we have learned is that when we unapologetically demand what is ours, the 99% is always stronger than the 1%. We built this country. We put the stones of that monument on our backs and we erected it to the sky. We made this monument to this individual who, when he passed the Emancipation Proclamation, didn't do shit to enforce it. Pulled the troops out of the South and ushered in Jim Crow. And at the same time, try to convince black leaders at that time that maybe they should just leave the country. What are y'all gonna do about this? They'll never accept you here. We erect and we tell these lies, which is why when the cries and the demands come for defunding the police, it's not just some random policy. It's literally so that we can remember when we look at officers and they brutalize us, we put the tear gas in their hands. We put the batons in their hands. We put the rubber bullets in their guns, not by our own choice and volition, but by the money that we put in their pockets. They're wearing our uniforms. They are using our supplies, they are using our materials, they are using our contributions, the blood and the sweat on the ground of this country against us, and we must not stand for it, and we must demand that they calm the fuck down and finally do their job and stand for the people and work for the people. Now, this is the last piece I'm gonna offer. When I have hired somebody and employed them to do a job for me and they don't do the job, I fire them. They are my employees. Public servants are our employees. I was an educator. I went into classrooms every day and I taught children. I did a very important job in my opinion, but I was never confused to think that I was not a servant of the public. I worked for the students. The actualization of their education determined whether or not I was successful at my job. My job wasn't about doing arbitrary things. It was about accomplishing things in service of them. So when they are not in service of us, we demand that something changes. So do not, in any capacity, be apologetic about demanding what is rightfully yours. That is why the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement have said that we no longer put our hands up and say, hands up, don't shoot, because we should never have to ask for the right to live. Putting our hands up is done with. Kneeling on the ground and submitting ourselves and our bodies to their will is done with. It is over.
That's right.
We don't say hands up, don't shoot. What we say is fist up, fight back. In the honor of the activists and organizers on the ground that have made that rallying cry, this is not something that I created or my own, but in honor of those people and what they do, that is what we do. So when I say fists up, say fight back. Fists up! Fight back! Fists up! Fight back! Fists up! Fight back! Fists up! Fight back! Do not ever for a single moment forget your power. And I will say this, I don't know how old y'all are, y'all are pretty damn young to me. Do what the next generation will be proud of. Think about years from now when you look back at 2020 and you assess your actions as an individual. Are you going to be proud of your opportunity to change and affect things? Or are you going to live a life of regret around what could have been, what should have been, in what reality you didn't commit yourself to serving a role in actualizing? That is your charge. When you leave, when you're here, think about the ways you can disrupt at all times. When you leave here, think of the ways that you can disrupt. Everyone has the opportunity and an avenue and a way to do that. Find that, do that, and fight the fuck on.